You're careful about what you eat and what products you use, and you want the same healthy life for your beloved pets. You've been searching the internet and social media for natural solutions to your pet's issues, and you're trying to find ways to prevent issues from cropping up in the first place. But everywhere you look, you find different answers, varied opinions, and you just end up more confused. Your pet is a part of your family. He deserves the best, and he deserves to live a long, healthy life. I'm here to tell you that it can be easy, that taking care of your pet naturally doesn't have to be a headache for you. I'm going to talk to you about everything natural wellness, including what to feed your pet, how to use herbs and essential oils, massage and hands-on techniques, meditation, communication, and energy healing. If it's natural, it's worth talking about. In this podcast, you'll learn everything you need to know about taking care of your pet naturally, for life. I'm Corine, and this is the Enlightened Animal Podcast. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Enlightened Animal Podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Victoria Haffer from the Sovereign Empath as our guest. Victoria holds a master's in science with over 20 years of facilitating massive transformation for women and their animals. She is a master healer for people and animals, Reiki master and teacher, holistic dog trainer, equine facilitated coach, trauma support specialist, meditation teacher, and international wellness retreat facilitator. Victoria's mission is to guide highly sensitive empaths to reclaim their personal power and authentic voice via connecting to self, the animal queendom, and the planet. So welcome, Victoria.
Thank you so much, Corine. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very excited to talk to you with a background like that. Wow. We have a lot to talk about. Yeah, I can imagine.
When you've been doing stuff for a long time, you just get to collect a lot of wonderful trainings and tools and techniques into the twin box. So
yes, I can join you on that one. So so I like to start each episode with a story. And I would love if you could share some pivotal moments in your 25-year journey that led you to your current path as a holistic practitioner and entrepreneur.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So just to give a quick background on where I started, I actually started in the fitness industry as a group fitness instructor, personal trainer, and a health coach. So I did that for about 20 years. And then yoga showed up for me. Literally showed up for me. It was crazy. The certification company that I worked for, where I was certifying personal trainers and kind of traveling all over the world, they started, they created a yoga certification, and it wasn't like yoga was even on my radar. At that point, I was your typical fitness instructor, go, that kind of energy, and yoga showed up. And again, this is like 20 years ago. And so I had the opportunity to take the training for free, and I thought, why not? I'll add one more thing to my, my toolbox. And little did I know that it was going to literally change my life. So from there, I went into a whole yoga journey, yoga and meditation and deep spiritual work. I lived in an ashram for 5 years as the director of the Yoga Retreat Center. Yeah. So this is the story. This is where the story begins. So it was, I had been there for almost 5 years, and the job was amazing. I got to, work with, create all these amazing workshops and trainings and festivals. I created Bliss Fest, which was a yoga and music festival, and Kundalini Yoga Fall Festival. I was a big support as far as making that successful every single year. And so I was in a place in my life that things were just easy, and they were, they were groovy, and I loved it. Honestly, I loved the work that I did, the people that I worked with. I learned so much, but I also was a strong connector in my own following the spiritual breadcrumbs and connecting into my own spiritual self, And so what happened was the grasshopper showed up. So literally the grasshopper showed up. So as you probably know that many different types of in the animal and the elemental kingdom, each animal insect, it can represent, as a power animal or a totem animal, them showing up in your life, they can bring you a very strong message. And so, as most people could think, what do you think the grasshopper actually represents? You might know or you don't, but what would you think it would mean?
For me?
Well, yeah, just think of a grasshopper. What do you think it would?
It's one of the ones I actually haven't looked up. I'm always looking up animals, but
Yeah.
I would think something about taking a leap or
Bam. So you nailed it, sister. So they were my spirit team they were like, it's time for you to do something else, right? So the grasshopper literally showed up everywhere. Now, first of all, I didn't usually see grasshoppers before. Suddenly they were just everywhere. They would be on the because I lived where I worked. So I lived in an apartment, and then my office was on the same space at the ashram.
right.
So the grasshopper showed up on the door of the office, on the stairs of going up to my apartment, on 2 floors up right outside my meditation room. Like, it just kept showing up and showing up. So it was really interesting. And doing that, I don't know if the listeners can relate to ever having these strong messages come through in our life when you say it doesn't make any flippant sense, but you and when you don't listen to your higher self, your spirit self, your, the source, the universe, whatever you want to call it, often the resistance shows up, and then that's when the hard stuff really happens, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I did, I gave my notice. I stayed there for a little longer. And at that point, it was really interesting because it was actually the year of the horse in Chinese astrology.
Right.
And I've always loved animals. At that point, I had been working primarily with people. However, animals were just a huge aspect of my life. Just, I would go to zoos, which I am not a fan of any kind of those places, but at the time when I didn't know that I was, quote unquote, a psychic empath and had a strong connection to, the universe, the nature sprites, the fairies, the elementals in the animal kingdom, I would go and I would get messages from the tigers and the bears, and I would get really angry. And I was younger, and I would just be like this. I would just be so angry. And I wasn't sure what was happening with me.
Right.
But anyways, fasting forward to the grasshopper showing up, me giving my notice, and then knowing it was time to change. Being the year of the horse, I was like, oh, I want to work with horses. Now, at this point, I had already been a Reiki master teacher. So I had been doing Reiki on people for a really long time. And then I started to do Reiki on animals. And so I started going to local farms and barns, especially therapeutic barns, because, you and I are just getting to know each other. So this is exciting.
Right.
But, horses, and I'm sure you know this, they often don't have a choice, right? Wild horses are different, but even that is a whole other story of what's happening with the wild horses. But in a situation where you're in a stall and then, you have to go for riding lessons constantly all day long, they just don't have a choice in matters. And so I started doing Reiki on a lot of different horses. And, a lot of the people they were open to it, but they didn't really understand. Even today, I still feel that way. A lot of times people don't understand what this Reiki thing is and what is energy and frequency work. Yeah. And the truth of the matter is that all of it is science, and all of it is proven. If you look at metaphysics and the science, frequency and everything is energy and all of it. So I would do one session on a horse, and their owners were like, oh my goodness, I don't know what you did, but they're a different horse. Like, all these things, they were so great. And then I decided to become a equine facilitated coach from that situation. Wow. And because I was doing a lot of work with animals long distance, people started asking me, do you work with dogs? And I said, sure. Yeah, I work with dogs. And then I started working with dogs long distance as well. And that's when I decided to become a professional dog trainer. So all of that pretty much happened in a year's span of time, from leaving as, high level management, which has always been my thing in the yoga world, and then moving into doing a lot of the work that I do now. So short story, long story short.
It is funny how sometimes, you just have to take that leap of faith, and then it just like supercharges. And I mean, you went through so many different phases and learned so many different things in such a short span of time. It's pretty amazing. And within all that, what inspired you to focus on guiding highly sensitive empaths in that work?
That's a great question. So being a coach, I actually did my training with Tony Robbins. And so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, so I started doing a lot of coaching and in person and virtual. And I have clients all over the world. And, for anybody who knows, as an entrepreneur, they say that the more you can niche in your business, the more I don't know, I don't want to use the word successful, but the more you really get to target who is your ideal person, right? Who is my ideal avatar? Who is that person that is going to benefit the most from me? Now, sure, I have tons of skills and I can quote unquote support and guide just about anybody.
Right.
And in answer to your question, like being an empath is a very specific skill that people have. And what I've found in being, I run a lot of women's networking groups and I have my own Facebook groups and I'm in a lot of Facebook groups and following that and looking at, all the really cool women that are similar to me, that are really open to the magic, see the magic in everyday life. And they really, they love animals. That was the other thing. So I'm like, who's my ideal avatar is that typically it's women. Again, I don't, I'll work with men for sure, but typically my ideal client is women, and younger women has been what I've done a lot of work with, typically in their 30s. But again, if somebody feels like they have a soul contract with me and they're like, she's my woman and, we're going to work together, I'm not going to turn anybody away in that respect. But being an empath, animals are such empaths, right? Like I know you know that. And this whole thing of being highly sensitive and being able to pick up on other people's energies and frequencies. Like, for example, I didn't know that I've been an empath my whole entire life. I didn't know what it was until probably my 30s. And then I thought, holy horsey, right? Like here's this thing. Now I understand why I didn't have full control over my moods, my emotions, and my energies. And then when I learned what that was, and I learned how to take that kryptonite, which so many of us think that being an empath is kryptonite, and turned it into the superpowers that I now have. So I just thought, well, why not? It will be fun, right? Like it brings me joy to teach women like us, who are in that space of highly sensitive women who have a strong connection with the animal kingdom and how that relates to their relationship with their animal.
Right. And I think it's interesting because I find that the audience that listens to my podcast tends to be very connected, or they want to be connected more spiritually or on a deeper level with their animals and or with their dogs more specifically, because this is a dog podcast. But I find that people who are like that tend to be very big empaths. And one interesting aspect of that is that I find that we end up with dogs or pets in general, but I like to talk about dogs who mirror that back to us, who are, we have an animal that's got, a quote unquote behavioral problem, and they're actually mirroring something within us that we need to work on. And so I find that it's really important for anyone who has a dog, especially at least the people in my orbit who have dogs, to really focus on their own self-care, which we tend to forget, especially as empaths, because we want to help others. We want to help our dogs. We want to help our family. We want to help the neighbor. And we forget to help ourselves. And so I find that what you do actually kind of is very important as part of being a good dog parent. Yes. is really focusing on your own self-care. And I think the whole empath portion is really overlooked a lot. And how would you, or can you share a success story of someone who's gone through a significant transformation with your help that could potentially then um, give some inspiration to our listeners who
Yes.
are probably going through something similar?
Yeah. So what I find that's really interesting, and Corine, like what you said about the lack of consciousness of giving to ourselves, right? Like
Yes.
it's a really old ancestral wound that we really need to be aware of. And
Yeah.
so once people start to realize that it's really not cool not to take care of yourself. Like the martyr is just, it's just so old school, and like let's just delete, destroy, and uncreate that and make it really cool. Let's bring cool back to putting ourselves first, right? Whether you have
Right.
children or animals, and whether your animals are your children, right? We know all about that with my, empowered, I have the Holistic Dog Moms group on Facebook. And oh, I don't know if you're in that. We'll have to talk about
I'm
that.
not. You'll
Yeah,
have to give me that information.
please. I would love for you to join us. What I found is that many of my clients have actually come to me through their dogs. So, like you said,
Oh,
people
interesting.
are
Yeah.
more willing to spend money on their children, their animals, before they will, quote unquote, on themselves. And so,
Yeah.
so I'll give you one example. One of my amazing client, female woman, single. She's a loner. I'm kind of giving the description of a lot of my clients. Black sheep, didn't feel like that she fit in with her family,
Yeah.
and
Oh.
yeah. Oh my God, it's true, Corinne.
Well, I'm not single though, but yeah, it's not me.
Yeah. Yeah, and or maybe don't have children, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. But yeah, it can still be all those things. And she was having some problems with her pupper. He was a rescue and he was reactive, right? So my specialty is typically anxious, fearful, reactive dogs and horses as
Right.
well, and people. People give me all those
Yeah.
things too.
Yes, they
So
can.
so she hired me, and when I work with my clients, it's not just, I don't even like the term dog training, because
Right.
it's as if dogs need to be trained, like, obedience. When people say, I just want my dog to obey me, then I'm like, I am definitely not your person, because I teach people how to communicate with their animals on all levels, and how to speak doglish, right?
Mhm.
That's what I teach people, how to speak doglish. And in that space, you have to learn about yourself. Like, you can't just put the blame. Typically, there's nothing wrong with the dog. It's often the lack of clarity and personal power, confidence, and knowing about dogs,
Right.
right? So really understanding that, yes, we can love our dogs. I don't have human children. I have two dogs and a cat, and I love them more than life itself, and I set very good boundaries with my dogs. They need to know that, I mean, I'm not old school, and I'm a quote unquote force-free dog trainer, no shock collars or whatever. But you can't baby your dogs either. Like, that's where, like, my some of my most favorite clients are Chihuahuas. Like, I love Chihuahuas, right? And
Mm.
small dogs are misunderstood, and they're also,
Oh yeah.
they're not like, we got our pupper, Captain America, who is a Chihuahua. And got him when he was like 5. He was a rescue, and he did not even know how to walk on a leash.
Wow.
I'm guessing he was either carried all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so going back to the client, the first thing I do is I teach women about dogs and what they need and what they really need. And then I
Mhm.
make sure, so I kind of, we want to check in with belief systems, because a lot of times women who are, I hate to use the word broken. I don't like that word, but people will say that, and they get their primary source of love and connection from their animals. And so they can
Mhm.
almost smother them a little bit, right? And not giving the animal the opportunity to create their own sovereignty and to make
Right.
their own choices, right? So anyways, the woman I'm speaking of, she started as with just the dog, and then she purchased more sessions through me working with her and doing frequency energy healing. And then I did a connect with your dog. One of my favorite sessions is a connect with your animal session that I do virtually, online. And then we do a recording, and then I teach you how to connect energetically with your animal, even when you're not home, because that's important. Especially, I've had a lot of clients that have dealt with separation anxiety with their dogs, and that can be terrible. Like that is such
Right.
that, the panic and the terror, and then the owner is like, they can't even have a life of their own.
Right.
Because of the imbalances in the specific chakras in the animal.
Right.
So anyways, I went off, but that's kind of how I flow anyway,
No.
as I go into different situations. But I think that women, when often that they will have soul contracts. We have soul contracts with our animals. And just like with humans, just like with your partner or your kids or your parents, we have soul contracts. They come in for a very specific reason. And whether it be for us to learn or them to learn or both of us to learn with each other, often they create the soul contract with the dog, so that the dog brings me to them.
Right.
The
Right.
the dog and I have the soul contract, and then the dog acts up, right? Quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote.
Yeah.
There's a problem. And then that's how I connect with the human.
Right. Right. And I think it's interesting too, because, you're talking about like the behaviors and everything. And I'm kind of circling back to what you said about horses and their lack of choice. And I've always felt the same way with dogs, is that we don't give them enough choice. We tend to be, or we have, in the past, it's been more of, you need to do this, 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 and this, as opposed to asking them, what are your needs, and what would you like to do? And we do force, they're forced. You were talking about the stalls with the horse. I mean, our house basically is a stable as well. They're forced inside the house and into our environment and all our stress as well, right? So
Yes. Yes.
yeah. And I'm curious. I feel like, you're kind of offering almost like a holistic support system for your clients, and you have such a diverse skill set. How do you integrate the various modalities? Do you know ahead of time, or is this something that you just walk in blind and you just see where it takes you, or are you a channel? How does that work for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically I do allow for a consult with people who are interested in working with me. So I do a 20, minute call. And obviously from then I am an oracle. So I literally read people's souls. So I connect, and I am a channel, and I do download stuff for people. I don't freely give the information up. First of all, I need to make sure that they're ready and willing to have the information.
Right.
Yeah. And so I'm not just telling people things. I prefer to, in that empowerment state of, that my dog business is called Canine Empowerment. And really it's about empowerment for the dog and for the human. Yeah. So I'm pretty intuitive, about everything that I do. So that's the thing, it's amazing that I have all the tools and, and all the techniques and all the different things that I work with my clients. And at the same time, I do my best to get out of the way. And like I said, it's not, I have no attachment to any of it. I tell my clients that I'll tell them I love you. And of course I want the best for you, but this has to do with your ascension and your journey, so I'm that, I'm a mentor, I can be a coach, I can be, a supportive healer, but really what I do is I teach people. Like, I don't want to be their mentor forever. I'm
Right.
always there. Like I have clients that will check in maybe yearly and they come in, they do a clearing or something. But what brings me the most joy is when people graduate from me. I say when
Right.
people work with me, it's like them literally getting a PhD in spirituality and how to connect with the animal kingdom and
Right.
themselves.
Right.
Because it's really about that, Corine. It's really about
Yeah.
teaching people how to reconnect with themselves and to truly trust in their own inner knowing, you know?
Right. 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 Definitely. Yeah. And I would assume that there are some common obstacles that you see clients face on this transformational journey that you really have to kind of help them overcome. And where do you find that people tend to get stuck
Yeah,
on this journey?
yeah. It's a great thing. So this is the deal. If you are an empath, you are constantly, I like to explain to people like you're like an antenna, right?
Mhm.
Like your body is an antenna, and your field is we're basically electrical beings. So the fact that we're dealing with other people, like for example, if you go into a restaurant and you're sitting in a booth and someone sits behind you in a booth, your back to their back, you are now sitting in their energy bubble, that you are
Yeah.
now sitting in their biofield. So anything sitting in their field has come into your field. Right. So this is the
That.
thing. As empaths, we are constantly picking up on things, driving, watching TV, on our phones, the frequency that comes through, scrolling on social media, watching Netflix that puts off a very specific, not very
Yeah.
good frequency. Right. So there's so many things going on. And so the first thing that I teach my clients and my students is that to ask themselves, is this mine? Like
Right.
whatever the thing is, and the trigger, the discord, the lack of being in what I think everybody wants is to be in the joy field, right? The divine alignment where you're in the flow. When you're not in the flow, then you're something is off. You're out of balance.
Right.
Whether your meridians, your chakras, all of the things that we talk about, your biofield has tears in it, micro tears in your field that you're not healing and sealing on a daily basis. So really where I start with is that I teach people that
Yeah.
99% of what you're feeling isn't yours. And if it is yours, then I teach them how to heal that aspect, right? The
Right.
anger, because we've been taught is to be good little girls and
Yeah.
don't what I mean? Don't be heard, don't just be seen. All of these things that we've bought since we were little, and maybe even ancestrally from past
Right.
lives, parallel lives. So that's kind of where I start with people, because once you start to recognize that most of the stuff that you're holding on to isn't even yours, like the
Right.
eclipse, right? A lot of
Yeah.
crazy energy was going on with
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah.
Like people are like, is this mine? Is this even mine? Return to sender with consciousness. And then the first tool that I teach every empath is how to clear their energy as well as their animal's energy. Because
Right.
remember, most animals are healers. Not all of them, but most of them are. And
Yeah.
a lot of them actually signed up to truly be healers for the planet. The dog that
Yeah.
just wants to heal everybody.
Yeah.
The dog.
Yeah.
Right? They're just happy and joyful, and
Yeah.
their tail is wagging, and everybody that comes into their energetic field, they get healed. And then there's dogs that are a little more discerning, and
Mhm.
they're only working with their soul mama or papa.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. So when we are, a lot of times you see these jokes, the memes on the social media about that their dog is a therapy dog, and they're
Mhm.
quitting their job because all their person is constantly load, and a lot of times as empaths we don't even realize, we don't purposely do it. We're not like, oh,
Right.
I'm just going to give all of my physical, emotional, and mental anguish onto our dog. However, it happens. And so I teach
Yeah.
my clients how to clear their energy and how to clear their pet's energy
Wow.
every
That's
day.
great. That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a question that I ask every one of my guests, and this is related to my mission of creating a collective of soul-led dog parents. And so soul-led dog parenting to me is incorporating body, mind, and spirit. All aspects of this come into play in parenting our dogs. And I would love to know how you feel what you do fits into this mission.
My work or how I am with my dogs?
Whatever, however you feel you want to answer.
Well, I mean, it's really what I do, right? Like what you
Mhm.
just said is exactly what I do. So mind, body, spirit, and like it's just like with anything, we need to do the work, right?
Mhm.
You're a healer, right? You're a holistic practitioner for dogs, people. If you're not doing your own work as a, even if you're we're just talking about dog moms, right? Or dog
Right.
dads.
Yeah.
Um,
Mainly moms, but yeah.
yeah, I do have a few dog dads in my dog moms group,
Yeah,
but that's fine. Again, I don't, if they want to join us, let's,
of course.
bring
Yeah,
them, because
always
the
welcome.
men need the healing as well. And so, yeah, I mean, and the crazy, I just need to back up a little bit because as a professional dog trainer, like when I started out, I was in a lot of dog groups and I would bring up things like energy and Reiki. And sometimes I would get just chastised and,
Yeah.
the dumb comments that they would put on these things. And I wound up leaving most of these groups and thinking, wow, those people are open-minded, and, and it's okay, right? No, judge. That's fine. But then I did start to find some quote unquote dog trainers that were actually doing what we were doing and having that compassionate way of showing up, and that
Yeah.
animals communicate with us. Like all this stuff has all been quote unquote proven. I love when these little
Yes.
science studies come out and they're like, oh, your dog actually
It-
understands what you're saying, Oh, we've known this for a really long time. So anyway, I mean, if you approached all aspects of your life, not just to mention your relationship with your dog, just imagine how much greater and more wonderful your life could be,
Yeah.
right? To look at
Right.
all aspects of, mind, body, and soul.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And as we're wrapping up here, do you have any final words or thoughts you'd like to share with the audience?
I just, if any of this is resonating with you, right, just feel free to reach out. I really, really, I wake up every morning and I ask to be the channel for the people that are looking for support, and the animals, right?
Right.
Because the thing is, the animals can't really knock on my door. They can do it. They can do it from the, the astral plane, but not on that.
Yeah.
So, if any of this is resonating, please, feel free to reach out. I'm here to stay connected to you. It's how Corine and I found each other on the
Yeah.
social media, and I'm so glad and grateful for you and for, reaching out. And I just love meeting like-minded people because we're raising the vibration and supporting and healing the planet, the animals
Yes.
and humanity through
Yes.
consciousness, through this higher
Definitely.
collective consciousness. So
Definitely.
it's awesome.
Definitely.
It's great.
And on that note, where can people find you if they want to find out more about you or connect with you online?
Yeah, so I didn't do anything fancy so that people didn't have to search for me too hard. Everything is under my name. So my
Okay.
website has all of the things and ways. I have a YouTube channel. I will be starting a podcast soon. I'm mostly on Facebook and on Instagram, and I have a Facebook group called Holistic Dog Moms. So would love for you to
I
join
will
me.
be checking that out. Yes. Yeah. So that's at
That's
victoriahaffer.com, correct? And
it.
everything is Victoria Haffer. Well, I will
That's
put
right.
that in the show notes for
Thank you.
everyone so that they can
Appreciate your
just click
grief.
the link and find you very easily. Well, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I am always so grateful to have these wonderful conversations, and it was very enlightening. So thank you for agreeing to come on the podcast.
My pleasure, Corine. It was so great. Thank you so much, and blessings to you and all the work that you do.
Thank you so much. And to all our listeners, this is the end of this episode. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye. Woof, woof. Yeah. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family who have pets. If you have found value, they will too. If you have questions, I'm here to help. Email me questions at contact@enlightenedanimal.com, and I may use your question for a future podcast episode. If you want more, check out my website at www.enlightenedanimal.com. Finally, I have a personal request. Please leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, ideally a positive one, so we can reach more people and help more animals' lives. Thanks for listening.